A company called EC, which originally stood for Educational Comics, came to lead the pack in providing mature-themed comic books in the 1950s. If not by volume, then at least in terms of notoriety. EC was founded by Max Gaines in 1946. Gaines is easily the most influential figure in comic book history. He invented the four-color press that is still being used today to print comics and other publications. Max Gaines is also credited with inventing the superhero genre, having greenlighted Siegel and Schuster's Superman for publication after numerous refusals. Gaines also started All American Comics, a line that solely featured superheroes, and introduced the original Flash, Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman. Gaines died in 1947, and his son Bill took over EC. At first, EC published picture stories from the Bible, along with history titles and funny animal books. When Bill Gaines took the reins, he began producing teenage comics and westerns, which over time transmuted, as many EC comics were known to do, into romance and crime comics, going through numerous title changes. His early EC output seemed to simply focus on whatever was currently in vogue in comics. Where EC hit its stride and truly began earning a name for itself was in horror comics. Gaines and his partner Al Feldstein held a common fascination with all things macabre and decided to deploy this into a line of comic books. In 1950, they converted their title, Crime Patrol, to The Crypt of Terror, which was met with such a positive response that it was almost immediately followed by The Vault of Horror and The Vault of Fear. Following these successes, Gaines and Feldstein began to pursue another mutual interest, science fiction. Weird Science and Weird Fantasy debuted, aimed at an older audience than the horror books, and another title, Crime Suspense Stories, combined the crime and horror genres. The fall of 1950 also saw the appearance of Two-Fisted Tales, an adventure book that had run through numerous title changes and was given to Harvey Kurtzman, whom Gaines and Feldstein had hired as an editor and artist in 1949. Soon, Kurtzman was also writing and editing Two-Fisted Tales' sister publication, Frontline Combat. It was on these books that Kurtzman became known for his meticulously researched and detailed stories. These books were recognized as being the most historically accurate adventure and war comic books made. Kurtzman was also renowned for his genius blending of text and pictures. His stories were told with a combination of the two that created an impact that transcended what would reasonably be achieved with either element on its own. With a name change to Entertaining Comics, EC was set to make its mark on comic book history. Rather than following existing trends, they created their own new trend. EC quickly and justifiably earned the reputation of producing some of the most literate and well-drawn comic books in the market. They were far ahead of their time. Gaines attracted the best artists in the industry the easy way. He paid more than his competitors. Artists at EC were also paid faster than at other publishing houses and were offered other uncommon perks. The artists were allowed to draw in their own personal style, to ink over their own art, and to sign their work. With the ability to sign their art, artists could not only work the way in which they felt most comfortable, but were determined to produce their best possible material since their names were on display as well. Since every artist was trying their hardest, they felt compelled to keep up with their fellows and do their absolute best. And the result was the most visually impressive comic book line of its time. EC not only advanced the notion of mature content in comic books, but their standards of publishing allowed for a whole new level of artistic expression, and their influence is still seen in many of today's comic books. EC published several other books in addition to those mentioned here, and they enjoyed success until 1956. But the EC legacy lives on. The world's most popular humor magazine for several decades, Mad, had its roots at EC under the title Mad Comics.